I know that the Finnish grammar can be really complicated. There is a lot of memes about it in the internet, about the grammar cases, about the conjugation, all that stuff. I've been trying to put everything together to be as simple as possible. We will be going through it together in here, but obviously if there are any questions left in your mind or you might not understand something, join the Finnish channel we have in Discord and we can definitely talk it through together and check the possible issues together as well. But the basics are here, so let's just get into it. We are starting from a very basic topic. This is something that's in many languages it's quite familiar topic, possibly for all of you, but just in case there's something different, the Finnish word groups compared to your native, I just thought that I'd rather add them in here. So I set them into 3 different groups. Depending on who you ask from, some might say that there's more groups, some might say that there is less. I think it's kind of opinion based how you wanna separate them from each other. But the first of the word groups is nominals, and they are conjugated depending on the amount of how many there are of those things, and also the grammar case that is used. Within this group, the nouns, adjectives, pronouns, and the numerals. The next group are verbs, and that's quite self-explanatory what the verbs are, but their conjugation is depending on the person who is speaking. The person sentence is about. Tempus, which is the time. Is it like past time, current time? Is it coming in the future? That will affect how you conjugate the verb, and also it's interact with each other. I would say that knowing modus at the very beginning of your language learning journey is not that important, and knowing how to conjugate the verb depending on the person and the time is the most important. Later, when you get more into the language, you will start doing more research about how modus works in Finnish, but still, because it technically does affect, I just wanted to mention it in here. And then last group includes adpositions, adverbs, and the grammatical particles. Within these groups, the words, they don't really conjugate, they don't change, or if they do, there is some very little changes. And that's basically the word groups and what the conjugations depend on within those different groups. Next part is the sentence structure, aka how you build sentences in Finnish. Creating the very basic sentences is quite simple. The Finnish language follows the pattern of subject, verb, and object in that order. So yes, you can see I've been trying to color code the words so you can better understand the word order. But if you want to say I drink water, you can basically translate it almost word by word. Obviously there is conjugation, but minä drink, juon water, vettä. And same goes if you want to say he likes you, hän pitää sinusta. It goes just like that. In Finnish, we also have a lot of passive sentences where you don't know the subject, aka you don't know the person who is completing the action within the sentence. And we use passive sentences in Finnish quite a lot. If you compare Finnish to English, English doesn't have that many passive forms of passive sentences. There are some, so I cannot say that there is none, but that can make passive sentences be difficult for some people because the other languages, since they don't really have them, you cannot easily translate them either. I just wanted to include in here so you know to be aware of them. And I included 2 example sentences. As you see, there are no translations written into it, and that's exactly because they are very difficult to translate. The first sentence is metsässä leikitään, which would roughly translate into someone is playing within a forest. There's like the action of play happening and you know where it is happening, but you don't know who is the person, who are the people who are playing within the forest. And also the second sentence, talvisin harjoitellaan. It's meaning like kind of like practicing is happened during winter, but you don't know who is the person practicing. We just know that someone is practicing during winter. The practice is happening during that time. And since the passive sentences, they don't have subjects, it's also not included in the sentence structure. So instead, the way you build passive sentences, you put object and passive verb, or adverbial and passive verb. The next next part is asking questions, because it's very important to know how to form questions. During the last class, we did go through basic question words. So if you don't remember them out yet, that's completely fine, but you can find them from the last recording, and there is all of the question words listed there that we have in Finnish language. But here are some examples of how to ask questions, how to make question sentences, since as you can see, not all of our question sentences have a question word. It can be a question without asking who or why or what. Let's go in order. The first example we have in here is sinä leikit, which means you are playing, like as in children play, you are playing. But if you want to ask, do you play? It will be leikitkö sinä. The person pronoun, it stays the same, but the verb itself, it conjugates into the question form. And as you can see, the subject and the verb, they switch places. So at the beginning, the subject will be the first, and then the verb will come after that, like in a basic sentence structure. But when you make a question, they swap places between each other. If you have an object in the sentence, the switch will also happen, but the object itself will stay in place. The example sentence we have in here, hän on kaupassa. He is in store. He is in shop. But you can ask, is he in store? And again, the verb conjugates into the question form, and the subject and the verb, they switch places between each other. But the object, it stays the same. The object word, it doesn't conjugate. It just stays the way it has been all the time. You sometimes do need the question words, and in those cases, the object does move. It comes in front of the subject, and the sentence will start with the question word always. Here we have example, kuinka vanha sinä olet? That is a familiar sentence from the first class as well. It means how old are you? Sometimes you might come across seeing like question words somewhere else than at the beginning of the sentence, but that is a bit more complicated sentence structure that we will not go through in the beginner classes. For now, you just need to know that if you want to ask a question, the question word will come to the front, and that's its place. But also, if you have a sentence with the question word, in those cases, only the objective that is moving, the subject and the verb, they sort of stay in place. They will be like subject and verb. They won't switch places. The next one, this is still about the sentence structure. This is about how you make the negative sentences. The negative verb, it also always conjugates depending on the persona, depending on the subject, the person that is like doing the action of the sentence. I made here some examples with the verb juoda, aka to drink, and I'm gonna read them out loud, but basically you can already see that the verb no, aka ei, does conjugate. Minä en juo, sinä et juo, hän ei juo, me emme juo, te ette juo, he eivät juo. And one of the most important things to remember with the negative sentences, in addition of the conjugating in personas, is that the negative verb, the word no, it always comes in front of the main verb. As in, nyt sataa, nyt ei sada. Olen ostoksilla, en ole ostoksilla. It will always stick to the verb, and it will not float around the sentence. You can sometimes play, indeed, with the word order in Finnish, but the negative verb, if it exists in the sentence, it will stay glued, the verb, in front of it, not behind, not somewhere at the end of the sentence, nowhere there. It will always stay right in front of it. Then the subordinating conjunction in sentences. I know the title might sound a bit intimidating, but it's actually semi-simple thing in Finnish. We have talked about examples of the usage of these words, but here's also a list of them. If you don't know them, they are joka, mikä, että, kun, koska. Again, if you want to hear more specific translations of what each of these words means, we went through in the previous class where we did some general repeating of things. But the reason we have this and why many Finnish teachers recommend using this is because you can build up the sentences you have and also make them flow more naturally. This is a thing that we recommend both if there are foreigners studying Finnish, but also it's a thing that Finnish children children go through in schools. And it's just something that you get to practice and it will become more natural to you as well the more you do it. And here are some examples of how to use them and comparing kind of like how it affects the language, how it makes it more fluent, how it makes it flow better when you speak. The first example, if you want to write super simple without using the subordinating conjunctions, you technically could say, aikuisena olen viisas. Silloin tiedän paljonko kello on. But if you use the word koska, because, the sentence will take more fluent form and turn into aikuisena olen viisas, koska tiedän paljonko kello on. And this sentence basically means as an adult I'm wise because I know what time is it. The next example, pidän suomen kielestä. Se on suomen virallinen kieli. Again, these are very clear sentences. You can get thought through, you will be understood. There is no issue with that. It's completely fine. But if you want to make it more fluent, you could add the word joka, which, and the sentence will sound like pidän suomen kielestä, joka on Suomen virallinen kieli. AKA, I like Finnish, which is the official language of Finland. The reason we use this is to make the sentence flow. It's because if you separate the same thought into two separate sentences, it might sound really stiff. It sounds like you just put your idea there, but if you use it to flow more, it makes it sound better, and it can also help the person listening to you to also understand a bit better what information is connected to which information, because you can see that there are two sentences, they might be related to each other or they might not be, but if you connect them into one sentence with the subordinating conjunction, you can already see that, okay, these things are related to each other. And there is technically no limit of how many of these words you can build up. The recommendation that I got in my Finnish classes when I was younger was to use maximum of 2. And that is just because although they make the sentences flow better, it can be very draining to a reader, especially if the sentence, it just keeps going and going and going and going. I know there are some authors, not all of them are Finnish, but some Russian and German authors that make extremely long sentences, and if you read their books, the sentence might be a half page long, for example, obviously depending on the page size. But anyway, it can be really difficult to keep the thought, to understand what is going on, because the sentence just keeps going and going, but you also don't want the sentences just be one after one after one, just stiff without like thoughts. It's good to have like 1 or 2 at maximum if you want to use them. Obviously, there is no need to use the conjunctions, but they definitely are visible in everyday Finnish all the time. No matter if you're speaking with people, or if you're texting with people, if you're writing or reading yourself, they will always be there. And one thing that I forgot to mention on the page here is that always when you use the subordinating conjunctions, you have to use comma in front of it. And that is also showcasing like where the sentence separates into 2 pieces. You need the word and you need the comma. And together they will keep it together, keep the sentence together, but also split it into sections, making it easier to read and understand. In texting, you might not always see it. Not all people who text in Discord or social media want to use it, but definitely if you're writing some essays, some longer text, if you want to write a book maybe someday, then it's definitely something to keep in mind, because it's just grammatically correct to place the comma there. The next thing, there are past tenses, and in Finnish language we have present, which is the present, and 3 past tenses. If you're a beginner, as most likely most people in this class are, I definitely recommend first learning the present form, like I sing, and imperfect, which is the most simple past tense. Here I have examples. Minä lauloin, I sang, sinä kävelit tänne, you walked here. It's as simple as past tense can go in Finnish languages, but if you start at some point consider the imperfect easy for you, you can definitely move up to perfect and plus one perfect. It's a very difficult and long word, I'm sorry, but pluperfect is the shorter version. And the example examples I have of those two more difficult ones in here are Minä olen laulanut, sinä olet kävellyt tänne. I have sung, you have walked here. And in the pluperfect, minä olin laulanut, I had sung, sinä olit kävellyt tänne, you had walked here. There is a difference. As you can see, for me, the best rule of thumb, so to say, to remember the difference between these two is that the perfect, it has the letter E in the verb, and the pluperfect, it has the letter I in the be verb, basically. So, minä olen, minä olin. But as said, only move there when you become more confident with the first past form, the imperfect, but keep in mind that there is also more of them. Then, this is the topic that probably intimidates most of the people when learning Finnish, and that is completely okay, that is completely understandable, don't worry. This is a topic that intimidates a lot of Finnish children in school as well, because just like everyone else, we do practice grammatical cases, and we have a lot of them. But not all of the grammatical cases are that important, I would say. So here I have included the first 10 cases that I think are probably the most needed, the most important ones. And again, if you start feeling more comfortable with these, you can definitely start checking out the other cases as well, but they're sometimes a bit more difficult to explain and a bit more difficult to give examples of. But these are completely fine start. This is a good place to start, and the cases we have here are nominative, genitive, accusative, partitive, inessive, elative, illative, adjective, ablative, and allative. You don't need to remember the names of the cases. The names that we have for these, they are kind of, well, complicated, but as long as you understand how the conjugation works and in which kind of sentences, in which kind of situations you need the specific type of conjugation, that's basically all that matters. The first case, the nominative, that's the basic form of the word. Like, as I have here, I'm using the house, the word house as an example to explain the cases, but nominative, just talo, house, it's not conjugated in any way. That's where it all begins. The next one is genitive, which is kind of like ownership type of thing. As you can hear, as an example, I'm using talon väri, house's color. If you want to say my dog, minun koira, the word mine, minun, is in genitive form. Next, accusative. It's a conjugation of the object of the sentence. If it's a whole thing, for example, maalaan talon, I paint the house, it means that you will paint the whole house. Or you can say syön kakun, I eat the cake, it means you will eat the whole cake. The next one is very close the same, but this is partitive. It means that the objective is incomplete, it's not full. Maalaan taloa, I'm painting the house. This means that you're painting the house, but you haven't painted the whole thing. You don't know if you will paint the whole thing, you are just painting the house as it is. Or if we want to use the cake as an example, I'm eating a cake, you're having a piece of cake and you're eating that one piece. You don't know yet if you will eat the whole cake, probably you won't. You just, I'm just eating a cake, I'm having a piece of cake, and that's about it. That's all that matters. And those are the first 4 grammatical cases. The next 6 ones that we have in here, they are related to locations, as you can see from the examples. The first 3, inessive, elative, and illative. These are when you are in somewhere, you're coming from inside, you're going into. So, talossa, in a house, talosta, from inside the house, taloon, into a house. The reason why I have a couple extra examples in the illative is that, unlike the others, these don't have very specific ending exactly. Like, for example, in the inessive, in the elative, the conjugation, it will end into ss SSA, SSA, ST, STA. But with the illative, it's that you make the last vowel of the objective long. You make like double, and then you add the letter N to the ending. So talon, talo, talon, taki, takiin, keito, keitoon. You will make the last vowel long and then add the N. And some of you might have the question like, what if the word ends with something else than a vowel? And that's a thing that doesn't really happen in Finnish language. All of our words are ending in the vowel, so it's usually very simple to conjugate them. So you just make them long and add the letter N, and then you have illative, you're going into a house, into a coat. Then the last three of this section are adjective, ablative, and allative. So these are again related to locations, but these are outside. They're either outside no matter where, but outside or on top. So talolla, talolta, and talolla. At a house, from a house, to a house. Ablative, talolta, from a house. It means like you are by the house, but you're not necessarily inside of it. So if your friend asks you like, where are you coming? You can say that I'm leaving from the house. I'm lähden talolta, which means like you're outside of the place, you're not inside anymore. That's where you are and that's where you're leaving. And that's the first 10 grammatical cases that are the most necessary to know. And you can use the suffixes that I have put here to do the conjugations. I put some thought to this before the class, and I don't think there really are any exceptions. Most of the adjective, most of the nouns definitely follow those suffix rules. So even though the grammatical cases might seem intimidating, you should be with this guide pretty much to do all the conjugations into those 10 cases. Or well, technically 9 because the first one is the very general form, the nominative, but you understand what I mean. The last thing, today's class was a bit short because although there are only like few topics in the grammar, they can be really complicated, and I just wanted to go the basic rules, the basic suffixes, the very basic of the Finnish grammar that you can then practice on your own based on that information. But in addition of just grammar, I also wanted to add some vocabulary groups that I recommend, because you know, sometimes we all have just situations when we're like, well, I want to study the language, but I don't really know what to do next. Technically, if you practice anything, it doesn't need to be useful. If you just practice something, it will always be helpful. But some of the very basic vocab groups that I can definitely recommend going through, also in Finnish, are some daily activities. This depends on people completely, but you can think of like drinking, eating, shopping, studying, you know, all kinds of things that you might do during your days. Then adjectives. In Finnish, we often highly recommend using adjectives. We like to describe things a lot, and we do describe things a lot. So learning an adjective or two a day, that's definitely recommended. We have some good adjective resources in the Finnish resource drawer in Discord, so I highly recommend checking that out and selecting some adjectives from there. The next thing are the hobbies. This goes kind of along with the activities, but it's good to, you know how to talk about things that you like. Talk about your hobbies, talk about things that you like to do, talk about things you might be interested in. Obviously, it's also good to understand what the other people have as their hobbies, but the ability to already tell like what you're interested in can definitely help to find people with same interests and same hobbies. The fourth group I recommend are good manners. That's kind of abstract and related to cultures quite often, but this includes like daily greetings, how to say thank you, how to say sorry, how to, be nice. For me, good manners usually include like, if I go to store, how can I greet people? How can I thank them? How I can be just polite towards people I don't know? and obviously people that I do know. And the last group is asking for help. There are definitely a lot of things that you might need help with. Asking for help in general, and then practicing maybe like, okay, how can I ask for more specific help? And asking for help, it doesn't need to be always emergency case. Obviously, if you're coming to Finland and you actually need help, then it's good to know the words. But asking help even with like linguistic problems or literally anything, it's good information. But that's pretty much all that we are going through today. As said, the class was today a bit shorter, but that's because we have a lot of complicated information to go through. And if you were left any questions, I'm sure that there is a lot to take in today's class, then come to the Finnish channel and we will definitely help as much as we can and answer all the questions. And if you are interested in learning about the other grammar cases besides the basic ones, then we can check the resources together. Or if you're interested more in the sentence building, then that's another thing. The conjugation of words, the grammatical cases, they are probably in the end the most simple because there are the suffixes to use, but there can be a lot other cases when conjugating might not be as simple. So it's a thing we can go through. But besides of all that, I'm very happy to see you all joining today, and we are gonna see after 2 weeks. Also, if you already have any questions, you can drop them and I will be answering them after this class. But besides that, we will see you in 2 weeks. So bye bye!